Good afternoon and welcome to the November 15th regular meeting of council. Sorry. The city of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. Just a couple of real quick housekeeping issues. I'm real happy to say that my ark is almost built now and we're just about ready to launch it up down the river. But regrettably, because of all this rain, we're in an evacuation order for Perry's Camp, what used to be Perry's Campground. Our staff are working with the residents right now, and if there's any questions about the evacuation, please contact the Regional District of Nanaimo. They're also evacuating the campground up in Dashwood as well. So that's two areas. The other thing that it's actually much more pleasant to talk about, over this past weekend, members of the Parksville Volunteer Fire Department collected cash donations for the Salvation Army and the toys for the Society of Organized Services. The Boots for Food drive successfully collected more than $90,000 in cash donations, with a record $58,614 donated by the Craig Bay residents. The official numbers will be available tomorrow. But on behalf of council, our sincere thanks to all of our residents for their generosity, for helping fill the boots for food. We also wish to thank the members of the fire department who volunteered their time over the last couple of days. What a great job. They should be very, very proud of themselves. So thank you for that. Onwards. So consent agenda for the minutes of the council meeting from November the 1st, and also the approval of today's agenda. I need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Patterson, second by Councillor Greer. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. We have two delegations today on the agenda. Karen Love and Sarah Foster will please present your update regarding the Boys and Girls Club, or BGC's, proposal to deliver childcare, youth programming, and family programming in Parksville. So please.
Hello there, can you hear me?
Who's? Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes, we can, Karen. We just
okay. Okay, thank you so much. So first of all, Mayor and Council, thank you so much for having us here today. As I said, I'm Karen Love and I'm very proud to be the Executive Director of BGC Central Vancouver Island. Sadly, I can't be there in person, but I am calling in from Calgary today. But in person today will be Sarah Foster. She is our Director of Childcare and Early Learning. And you will also hear from Ali Legg, who is our Manager of Integrated Child, Youth and Family Services. So my role today is to give some insight into the community partnerships and the use of what was formerly known as the Parksville Community Centre to community groups within the city of Parksville. This part of the presentation is very, very important to us as an organisation. But first of all, I just wanted to double check that Amanda will be moving the PowerPoint on for me. But we want to just talk about what we are and what we do that we can actually bring to the city of Parksville. So I'm not going to read each screen. I'm sure those around the table and those calling in are more than capable of reading. I would like to point out that we have now been renamed BGC as opposed to Boys and Girls Clubs of Central Vancouver Island. And the reason for that is just we've always been an inclusive organisation, but not every child or youth or family even identifies themselves as a boy or a girl. So our national organisation, BGC Canada, spent some time over the last few years actually rebranding. So it's a new name, but it's the same for us. It's 50 years of creating amazing opportunities for kids and teens and families in Central Vancouver Island, from Ladysmith to Comox Valley. So if I could ask Amanda just to move on the screen for me, I thought I would show you this really short video to show the community of Parksville what we do and why we do it. And there should be volume, Amanda, but I can't hear anything.
Over 120 years ago, the St. John community came together to help disadvantaged boys. Similar organizations popped up across the country and eventually came together as one. Girls needed safe spaces too, and we changed to meet their needs. But not every young person identifies as a boy or a girl, so we've changed our name to reflect that. At BGC, no kid or teen is ever turned away. No matter their background, no matter their circumstances. We are the largest dedicated child and youth serving organization in the country. Thousands of staff and volunteers nationwide believe that every single kid deserves a vibrant future. This means we will not allow any child or youth in Canada to be deprived of personal opportunity. Every kid faces different barriers, so we do an awful lot to help them. Does our work have impact? Just ask our alumni. We provide systemic opportunity to children and youth. We help them become their best selves. We cheer them on as they take it from there with confidence and conviction. All they need is opportunity, because opportunity changes everything. Now, who's with us?
Thank you, Amanda. If you can go to the next slide, please. So that's why we do what we do, and that's why our staff get up out of bed every single morning and continue to give back to children, youth and families. So very quick overview, our model of success here at BGC. One of the common features you'll see is that we are respectful, inclusive, and we're an engaging environment. We're relationship building and mentoring, but most importantly, which I think is of value today, we're a community and family engagement organisation. These areas talk about our short-term outcomes, our mid-term outcomes, and our adult outcomes for when kids reach into adulthood. So I'm not going to read out all of them today because I know we are very limited in time, but the presentation can be made possible to anyone who reaches out to me. If I could ask you to go to the next screen, Amanda. So this is an overview of what we do, everything from physical fitness, summer camps, homework help, job readiness, Indigenous initiatives and programmes. And this is what we can offer when we offer services in Parksville. Next one, Amanda. So our programmes and the topic of today's conversation. So our childcare programmes typically operate anywhere from 7:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. and they are Monday to Friday. Our youth programmes, for those younger youth that are ages 10 to 13, we would typically operate from 2:30 to 6:30. And then for those older youth, age 11 or 12 plus, we like to offer those in the evening. Our parent programmes would operate in times that suited the organisation as well as the youth. But in the current PCC, the large gym area that we will have will not be being used between 9 o'clock in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a regular basis, Monday to Friday, and also weekends. The only time we would typically use that during the day is if we were running summer camps or in-service days for schools or camps over the winter. The building itself is still available to the emergency management of Oceanside and other organisations. Next slide, Amanda. So some partnerships that we know are going to lead to success in us coming into the community is making partnerships with the RDN to offer co-programming and also to offer them space in this amazing building. We'd also like to partnership with the Society of Organised Services to offer some co-programming and space. I know personally, having met with Susanna, that SOS offers amazing programmes for all age groups in Parksville, and we certainly don't want to duplicate any of those services. We want to make sure that we're complementing whatever services that are already offered within the community. And then importantly for us is as other groups, getting connected to other groups, seniors yoga, I believe someone had reached out to me before from there, the Alzheimer's brain injury group. Anyone who's looking to rent our space when it's not in use is more than welcome to actually reach out and have that conversation. We don't want that great community space sitting empty during the day. So let's just support the community and actually offer that space out to any groups, any not-for-profit or other groups that just want to offer some programming services. Right now, we currently partner with the Participation Preschool in Nanaimo, and that's just what we do in our head office at Bevan. We don't offer childcare during the day, so we rent that out to another preschool who actually offers services. In Ladysmith, we partner with the Rotary. We're just about to partner with Girl Guides of Canada. And again, we are providing lease space outside of our programming hours. If you could forward on, Amanda. So what I'm going to do now is, I know that the space itself is a concern, but before we go into that, I would like to just pass over to Sarah Foster. She's going to talk about the services that you provide for your parents, and then she will hand it over to Ali, and at the end, I will come back and actually talk how our services meet the strategic needs of the City of Parksville. So I pass it over to Sarah, please.
Thank you, Ali. Ali found the button for me. This slide here is just some of the kids and showing their smiling faces and some of the wonderful activities that we've done with them. So all of those children that are in the pictures are actually our kids, and the comments that are on there are things that we've heard from our parents in the survey. We do annual surveys with our parents, sometimes twice a year, and so this is the feedback that we got. So teachers are excellent, the caring staff. We often hear how wonderful the programs are and what a difference it makes in the lives of their children. Next slide. The importance of early childhood. I'm sure everybody here is aware that 0 to 6 is one of the most critical times in a child's life in terms of their development. And so the early development instrument was created to do research on where children were at developmentally as they're entering kindergarten. So Parksville results indicate that 40% of children are vulnerable in one or more scales, with the highest being 23%. So what does that mean? It means that there's definitely some work that can be done in the community in terms of supporting the children 0 to 6 and look at how we can improve the outcomes for them in our program. Next slide. Our childcare and early learning programs, we offer licensed infant toddler, daycare, out of school care, we offer preschool. Our focus is on making sure that we provide opportunities for children and that we're providing a high quality for the parents while they work. We have a commitment to ongoing training for staff. What does that mean? We know that in the community there's a shortage of early childhood educators. And so what we have done is we've been taking some of our responsible adults from our out-of-school care programs, and we have been training them in early childhood programs. So our responsible adults are becoming early childhood assistants, our assistants are becoming early childhood educators, and our educators are now getting their infant toddler qualifications so that we can ensure that we'll be able to staff a number of programs in the future. Currently, we have 7 staff that are attending Vancouver Island University on a part-time basis, furthering their career. We also pride ourselves on being affordable. We are a not-for-profit, so we're not in it to make money. We are part of the government program, so parents are able to apply for subsidy and get the affordable childcare benefit. And we are also looking at trying to create a childcare assistance fund, because even those families who get subsidy, there's still a parent portion that has to be paid. So we're looking at ways to fundraise money so that we can assist those families as well. We also have applied for the $10 a day childcare site for 3 of our locations that we currently operate. So fingers crossed that we'll be able to be part of that as well. We are recipients of all the government initiatives we have signed on for the fee reduction initiative and the childcare operating fund. As Karen alluded to, inclusion is very important for us, so we partner regularly with supported child development programs. What does that mean? It means we bring in consultants to work with us with children with challenging behaviors, and we put together individual care plans for them, and we work to get support one-on-one in some cases for children in our programs. And we're also part of the VIU pedagogy project. So the early learning framework was launched in the last couple of years, and part of that is they are providing pedagogists to come into programs in the community to provide opportunity for us to basically take the early learning framework and apply it in our programs. So we have an instructor at VIU who comes to our facilities, and she watches the children and engages with the staff and actually helps us to implement the new early learning framework. Next slide. All of our programs, any of our childcare programs, all have the core programming areas. So some of the ones listed there, physical literacy and nutrition. An example of that is we received funding through Boys and Girls Clubs of Canada over the summer to provide opportunities for children to learn about nutrition. We taught them about, we grew gardens, we took them on field trips, we went to the local farmers markets and taught them about getting food locally and making sure that they're taking care of their bodies. Next slide. Where are we located? We've got 14 locations on Vancouver Island, as Ali will allude to. Finding buildings that actually meet licensing regulations can be challenging. So over the years, we've found a collection of buildings that have worked for us. So in the city of Nanaimo, we're currently operating in the old fire hall. We are operating in Kin Hut down at the beach. And we've also been operating in Bevan House. Some say it's haunted. We haven't had any experiences yet, touch wood. We're also on site at schools, both in classrooms and portables. We have a storefront location in our Lanceville program because that's all we could get at the time. We also have been in community halls and we own our facility at 5th Street and have recently partnered with the town of Ladysmith to do a similar project, which is the Ladysmith Felton Family Center. Next slide. And I'll turn it over to Ali.
Hello, thank you, Sarah. I'm very fortunate to have been supported by these programs through my university degree. I have been able to work in multiple programs, starting as a program leader. As you can see in these pictures, I was one of these young people providing opportunities for youth and children, and I've worked my way up to now being our Child and Family Services Manager. I can also say that my children have attended these programs, and so I feel that it is very much supported my family through as we've grown. So I'm here to talk to you about our integrated child and youth programs. Again, these pictures are pictures that were taken in our programs, doing things that we love to do, giving children and youth opportunities. And this is some of the feedback that we've gotten through our programming. So I will let you guys read those as we go.
Notice that adults are cool.
Yes, we are cool. I was fortunate enough to be one of the cool adults as well. So our youth services, currently we run a variety of program specific to meet the community's needs. And one of the, what I want to emphasize is that our programs are dependent on community. So what does the community need? Right now, we have different models that range from a drop-in program up to a year-round length program for different children and youth. We also have been involved with the city of Nanaimo to provide programming through their businesses, and we've adapted through COVID-19 to provide virtual services for our youth when they weren't able to come to our program. Next slide, please. All right, so here's an example of some of our current youth programming. Our Generation Q program was created by a group of adults within Nanaimo that saw a need that our youth, it was not being met to support queer youth between the ages of 13 and 18 and all of their allies. We also have our Purple Girls Ills group. So this group focuses on building self-esteem and self-worth in girls aged 8 to 12 or any individuals that identify as female. We also have our Southside Teen Center. So this is another drop-in program that allows teens to come into a safe environment where they can develop life skills, social skills, and leadership skills. All right, slide for me, please. All right, so we also have a number of curriculum-based programs that are offered through BGC Canada. So these programs usually range from anywhere from 10 weeks or to a year-long program. An example of these programs right now are Creating Connections. It's a new program we're starting in January. It specifically meets the needs of youth who are at risk for substance abuse, which is, as we all know, affecting our communities right now. This program will provide youth an opportunity of a safe space to learn how they can find and support themselves through addiction or the addiction of others. We also, I've been very fortunate to be part of a mental health support group called Flex Your Head through Boys and Girls Club of Canada over COVID. We provided an online program. It's a curriculum-based program that was 13 weeks for youth to come in and learn how they can take care of their mental health and well-being, especially during that very, very hard time. This program took off and we plan to provide it again in the future. One of the things that we've noticed is that our dropout age is around 11 for our out-of-school programs. And so we're looking to provide more opportunities for youth age 11 and older as they transition into independence and being able to stay home alone. Lastly, we also in our youth programming do stick to our core programming areas. So healthy, active living, leadership, learning and development, and youth engagement. Looking at making sure that no youth goes without service and that we can support children and youth to have a relationship for life with programming. Slide, please. All right, our parents need support too. I am a parent of young children who attend programming in Parksville. I myself live here and my children go to school here. And so I do see a need for these types of programming and parenting support. Right now, currently, Boys and Girls Club offers a family drop-in space. I did use this myself with both my children. It was a wonderful place for me to go and just get a hot coffee after in the first few years of my children's life and meet other moms in a program. We also offer 2 different parenting programs. So Parents Together and Parenting Without Power Struggles. I was fortunate to be able to be part of a Parents Together from a facilitator. And over COVID, I noticed that parenting programs diminished and that connection between parents very much wasn't taking place. So our virtual models allow us to reach parents not only in Parksville or in Nanaimo, but also all across the island. And we're looking to make sure those get back up and running so we can reach those families in Port Alberni and Tofino as well, specifically. As always, we're always looking for funding to grow our parenting programs and making sure that we can, deliver services to a wider audience. Next slide, please. I'm gonna pass it back to Karen now. I believe.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Ali. So a couple of areas I wanted to quickly cover before our time is up is the strategic plan for 2019 for the City of Parksville. One area was recreation, so offering young teens and youth a safe space. We really feel that as an organisation working with the community, we can certainly offer this. Community safety, and that was part of your strategic plan. By us offering programs between those critical hours of 3:30 to 6, this is when young people get bored, they get disengaged. This is when vandalism starts to happen because kids just don't have somewhere to go in a safe and supportive environment. And then economic development for the City of Parksville, wanting to bring more young families into the area. As a parent myself, I wouldn't come to areas where I didn't have those services already available that would support me. So one of those for sure is childcare and youth services, and hopefully that will just help to encourage families to move area or current families to even stay in the community. So I think that's really the 3 areas that we can certainly help the City of Parksville with their strategic plan. Amanda, if you could move on. So opportunity changes everything, and that's why we're here today. We want to be given the opportunity to come into the city and offer services for children, youth and families, but we also want the opportunity to work very closely with the people who live in Parksville. Whether you're 5 or whether you're 50 or whether you're 95, we want to be able to support the community in a more general view. So I'll hand it back to Mayor. If any of yourself or any members of council have any questions, we are more than happy to answer those for you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very interesting. We'll go to questions. Councillor Greer is up.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much for a great presentation. It sounds like an ideal program for all children. My question was, what type of staff do you have for maintenance of the building and management of the building when you no longer have classes there?
I can certainly answer that. So the way it works in our other locations is our staff are always responsible for the inside of the building. And then we always work with either the City of Nanaimo or the Town of Ladysmith, who actually maintains the exterior of the building. So it is your building should we move into the former PCC. So we'd be looking for the city to maintain that building as you would any other building owned by the City of Parksville.
Just to follow up, how many staff would you have management on the off hours?
That would really depend on the needs of the people who are renting the building. So right now we are closed. There would be no staff in the off hours unless there was somebody wanting to rent the building. Then we would have to arrange to have staff to come in and cover that, or have an MOU with any organisation who actually wanted to come, and providing they can provide their own insurance, they can actually come into the building without our staff being there. But they'd be very, very well vetted first of all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, through the mayor. Thank you very much for coming in today. This is great. Really enjoyed the presentation. You know, my particular interest is twofold. Firstly, I really like the idea that we're going to be working with kids that are of an older age group. You know, as we all know, that's a place where they can kind of go off the tracks at certain times. So I think it's great. And it's, I think, very proven that when we work with kids on stuff, especially education, pre-education on drug use and things like that, I think that could be a turning point for many of them, right? So anyways, I applaud you for that. I think that's a great program. And I know that's something you've been doing all the way along. It's not new, but it's great to see. So, and then secondly, I guess I have a question in regards to, have you had a fair amount of people asking about rentals and things of that nature for your building so far? Has there been some connections there? So.
To date, thank you for your question. I've certainly had a few people reach out to us at the start when it first became public that we were hoping to come to the community. But because we have no formal agreement in place as of yet with the City of Parksville, I believe those calls have sort of probably dwindled. But what I would ask the community groups is at the end of the process with council, if we sign an agreement, I would highly encourage all the groups who used it formally to actually reach out to me personally, and we can get that ball rolling. I do know we already have parents on a wait list when it comes to the child, youth and family programs.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your presentation. Great job on this one. Your childcare and youth programs, very impressive, very impressive. And I really know that you do make a difference in people's lives, and that's very important, especially with everything that's going on out there. So my questions are more to do with community use sharing of the facilities and so forth, and that's what. So I'm trying to get to specific times that the PCC, the auditorium, gym rooms, and so forth will be available to the public. If we can kind of pin that down. I'm looking at Karen up there and you here, so I'm not sure where this is. So I'll just talk and you answer whoever is best. So your programs run from 7:30 to 6:30, Monday through Friday type of thing. But then I'm going down later on, right down to the bottom of this handout that you give us here. The large gym area is not used 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday. So am I assuming then that the 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. slot is available Monday through Friday in the big gym for outside community groups? Is that correct?
Yes, that's what we would propose would be available as well as weekends. Yes.
Right. And so that would include like for the gym, what we had before using the PCC was indoor pickleballers and that type of thing, that they would come in. The only question I have is that if you have like, is there any licensing requirements regarding what do they call it? Safe and secure for like, you have to know what people are in the building sharing, in shared space with your youth and that type of thing. Is there any difficulties running with the general public there? That's not a problem. So they can intermingle in that same space. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So if you look at the plan, if you look at the plan that's further down in the package that came to council, you'll actually see where we have our 0 to 5 programs are not in the main gym. They're actually sectioned off. And that's one thing we were very careful of when it came to licensing, is making sure that the community centre as it is could still be used, but it wouldn't, your people who come in and play pickleball are not going to be wandering through our childcare, and same, the children are not going to be wandering through the gym. So I will quickly hand this over to Sarah. So Sarah's our licensing guru, I call her, for BGC, and I'm sure she can either confirm or add any extra comments to that question.
So sorry, yeah, I'm only getting part of it, so. Okay.
So the short answer is that we would, with licensing, we'd have to keep the kids separated from the people that are in the gym, but our dedicated space would be away from the gym area for the daycare programs. So the only program that would be operating out of the gym would be the out of school care programs, which would happen before and after.
Before those times. So this would be no conflict, because we have a group that comes in, there's 150 seniors that come in that like that space because it is so large and great for them. But at the same time that they bring in entertainment, they bring in ukulele groups and stuff like that, and entertainment for part of their programming, which is actually run through the SOS through here type of thing. So they're wondering if they're there, like, and I know that there's kids, they have, what do they call it, a napping room or a sleep room or something like that. Are they going to create too much noise? These 150 seniors, when they get going, it's going to be, loud and raucous. But that doesn't pose any difficulties, so they would still be able to come in on that basis. Is that what you're saying? Thank you for that. And then we're going down then on weekends and so forth. We've suggested that the city of Parksville retains the right to run the facilities for elections, all candidates forums and as well as emergency reception centers. Well, that happens. The emergency center, of course, happens anytime. We don't really have a clue on that. But like for the elections and so forth, so that means that like the advanced polling stations and so forth could be held there during the daytime type thing. So you just kind of shuffle your programs around. Is that how that works? And then I think Councillor Greer was referring to as well as your community rental agreements and so forth. So are you going to have staff available type of thing? Because as we said, for security of the building, you have to open and close, type of thing, at off hours and weekends and that type of thing. So are you doing that in any of your facilities right now? So you have people come in and setting up chairs and tables and whatever, if somebody's having a banquet on the weekend or something like that. So you have staff that do that as well. Is that correct?
At this point in time, no, we don't have a premise big enough that we would actually have that. Parksville Centre would be the first for our organisation to have such a facility. But we would actually have the staff, we will have to have the staff available, absolutely. That wouldn't be put on the community, and it certainly wouldn't be put onto staff within the city of Parksville.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think you've got my questions answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your questions.
Councillor Patterson and then Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, and thank you very much for your presentation. So when I was reviewing some of the paperwork and everything, it said that you already have people on a wait list. So they contacted the Nanaimo BGC, and that's what I'm assuming. So when will residents in the Oceanside area, Parksville, and that be able to contact a local number or get someone in this vicinity or anything to answer questions?
I can certainly, unless Sarah wants to answer that around the wait list, but we always have a central registration number. We don't actually have staff in different communities who take registration. It's a very centralised service. So they would just reach out as to all of our 2,500 families every year. They do an online registration system. And then if they have questions, they would just reach out to the programme leader once the programme's up and running. But prior to that, they would actually just reach out to our main office, which is located in Nanaimo.
Follow up, Your Worship. Thank you. So I guess some of my next questions are, you're looking at your programs similar to ones that you have ongoing, and that for the Parksville location. Do you have any dates or set timelines or anything in regards to when they will be offered?
The timeline will be based on the construction that's happening within the community centre, and that's completely out with BGC control. That's more around the contractor and the contract that the city have with whomever they take on to do the project.
One further. So based on the construction schedule and from what I've read and looked at and everything in the past, we're probably not looking at summer programs at this point in time. Would that be a fair statement?
That would be my interpretation, yes, unless the centre was opened in some format where we could actually hire our staff to run summer programming. And to be honest, a lot of our summer programming takes place in the community, not in the centres itself. So that's something I could certainly work with other organisations within the city, because I'm sure there's already some really good summer programming running.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And don't mind me if I have a coughing fit. Thanks, Karen and Ali and Sarah, for your presentation. I am really happy that you've answered my questions about community use. That was one of the things that concerned me right out of from the get-go. So I think you've addressed that really well, and nice to know some of that income will come back to help you out. There is something, it was, I believe, on page 35 of our agenda anyway, so everyone could follow, and it's how the cafe will work. You're talking about using it. I think this is a really interesting concept that you're going to hopefully work with the school district. How would it work with the public? Like, would the public be able to enter the facility and grab a coffee or a snack or something, or would this only be when the public is allowed to go in there? Maybe you could answer that, Karen. Thank you.
Sure, I certainly can. So that's known as a social enterprise. So what we do is we would actually employ our youth to run the cafe for other youth programs that are coming in. We haven't even had discussions yet around opening it to the public, because I'm quite sure there's some really amazing coffee shops, and I've been to quite a few of them in Parksville. So the last thing we want to do is to start, repeating business that's already there. It's more geared towards a social enterprise and teaching the youth who come to the program how to run a business and how to interact with members of the public and teaching them skills, but also having youth served by youth just gives them that mentorship piece as well. So that's really what my sort of bigger vision is of having the cafe. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thanks so much, Karen.
Thank you.
Good luck with everything.
And I do love coffee, so I wouldn't want to step in any toes in the Parksville.
And there are a lot of good coffee shops here for sure.
There certainly is, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you. Through your worship to the delegation, and just a couple of quick questions. I noticed that, of course, the time frame you can operate on is between, say, 9 and 2:30, where the auditorium is available. And then on the weekends, I just didn't miss that part. Is the weekends available to be rented? That's my first question. Is there anything going on the weekends?
Yeah, the weekends would be available. It really is based on need once we start. If we find out that, it's once every 6 months that it's needed, then that's something that we can manage internally with our own staff. If we find that there's such a need within the community that it's wanted to be booked out every weekend, then definitely I'd be hiring someone who's actually local to the area who could actually support that side of the business. And again, we wouldn't be allowed to make money from it because as a not-for-profit, but all those funds would go back into delivering programs and services.
A follow-up if I could, Mayor. Thank you. And then through the mayor again to the delegation, I mean, knowing that you are a not-for-profit, you've got a lot of money to raise. I believe I saw somewhere in there that you've got to raise $100,000 a year, I believe, to make some of the programs work in different areas. With that being said, if the building, of course, let's say there's construction outside the perimeter of the building and the outside area is being done, and there's just some certain rooms being done and nothing else is changing, would you consider, if the lease is all signed and everything, would you start offering that building area and the auditorium to groups that need it before you actually physically open? That's my question.
That's a really good question, actually. It's not something that we've been asked before or that we've even considered. Typically, when we open, all the services open at the same time. But certainly, if the community felt there was a need for that, then that's something we could work with the City of Parksville. Because I just want to make it clear that this is a partnership we're offering here. It's not just BGC coming in and offering services. We really want to work with the City of Parksville and its residents to find out what's needed and what we can do to support. So if you do find that that's a need, that's certainly a discussion I would love to have with the city staff.
That's excellent. Thank you very much for your help.
You're welcome. Thank you for your questions.
Councillor Fraz.
Thank you. And through our mayor to our delegation, I just want to start by saying thank you, Karen, for coming to give us this presentation. I wish you were here in person with us, though.
Me too.
I just, BGC, they have such a fantastic reputation all across Canada. And I really appreciate having this opportunity now to explore having them in Parksville to operate our community center. And I really appreciate the efforts you've gone through too, to work with what the community needs. Like we've heard about with having the gym available for different community groups, but particularly to bringing youth programming and supports for families in our community is something that we've been asked for a lot to make our community more vibrant and open up to the young people. One of the concerns I have, though, is when I look around at staffing right now, all businesses are struggling with finding employment or finding people to employ. And I'm curious how many early childhood educators BGC would need, knowing that they're already a commodity that's hard to find. What kind of staffing plan do you have in the future? Maybe you can just talk a little bit about how many people you're needing and how you plan to fill that void.
Thank you for your question. I'll take the second part first of all. How we're planning to fill that void is an ongoing concern for any organisation, including us. We would be very reluctant to say that we're coming in fully staffed. The upside is now that we're seeing more resumes coming into our organisation, we're also hearing from other not-for-profits and other organisations that certainly people are now starting to come out of the COVID sort of stay at home and be on serve and kind of realign. In addition, we're an incredibly fun place to work. Who wouldn't want to come and support, youth and children? The way we have a model is that we take on a lot of part-time staff. And because of the hours that we operate, so we're not looking for a certain number of full-time staff. When it comes to the staffing itself and the ECEs, I'm actually going to hand that over to Sarah. So Sarah has some information that she can share around what it will actually take staffing-wise to run the childcare programs alone. Sarah?
Everybody's staring at me. In order to run an infant toddler program, there's a 1-to-4 ratio for adults to children. So you need 3 full-time ECEs to work in that program, plus someone that's going to help to cover the breaks. And then in the 3 to 5 program, you're looking at, again, another 3 staff to operate the program. How are we going to get them? That's something that we've struggled for a while, just like everybody else around the early childhood educators. However, what we did is we did research around what other people were paying in the community to make sure that our wages were competitive first and foremost. As well, we have provided our staff with things like 50% off childcare, benefits. They get 3 weeks vacation to start with. Also, my brain just went back. So, and as well, we are paying for people to go to school. So we do have staff currently that are responsible adults that are interested in working in early childhood. So we're putting them in courses so that they can get their assistant status to get them started. And then those people who are assistants, we are working towards getting them their ECE, and then again, the ECE staff, we're getting them infant toddler credentials. So we are really trying to be supportive of people who are interested in working in the field. I think that certainly the government's dedication to the $4 an hour increase has also brought people back into the field. There's more people who are willing to not work in their house anymore. They're actually starting to want to come back to organizations. So I do think there is a bit of a shift. We certainly right now, honestly, I have more resumes coming in than I have positions in early years. So that's either kudos to us because we're a great organization, not that I like to brag, or it is the fact that people are starting to re-enter the workforce.
Yes, please.
I don't know if this would be maybe for you or the staff to answer, but my question is around for the childcare spaces that are going to be dedicated there. Whose responsibility is it to make sure that we can maintain those spaces? For example, like we have a grant with the province, do we have to maintain those spaces to always be available through whether having enough staff? If you don't have enough staff, then maybe you can't accommodate all the child spaces. Is that a requirement of the BGC or is it going to be our requirement to make sure those staffing levels and spaces are available?
Thanks, if I may, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Fraz. So in the grant, it says that if there's any reason why, say the daycare has to be closed for a period of time, or you're not meeting that requirement, that you notify the province right away. And so we actually spoke, our manager of communications and I were speaking about this, that when there's so for example, with COVID, that was beyond everybody's control that the center was closed or anything would be closed. So really it's a notice requirement. And then with the funding, if say there was a flood or something like that happened, we would notify right away. And then it basically says in the wording that you just provide the rationale, work with the province, and if it was something beyond all of our control, then we just work to find some solution. So we're not really concerned about, having to repay funding or anything in that respect. But if we decided just to close for no reason, then you would have to come up with a different solution.
Just to mention, my concern around that is just around mainly if staff aren't there, what the kind of downstream consequences are. There's, for families, it means their lifeline of having their child support or, having childcare. For us, it's the responsibility we maintain. So just trying to be cognizant of that impact that staffing has. And it is a pretty big concern these days. So I appreciate hearing that you have more resumes coming in right now than you do for positions to fill. That's definitely a good thing. And hopefully that trend continues.
Okay. What I'd like to do is somebody make a move and a second on the recommendation to receive. Councillor Greer, Councillor Chandler. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation. Well done. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And sorry, we've taken an extra 35 minutes of your time, but we appreciate it.
Thank you. Very good. Yeah. Yep. Okay, now our second delegation this afternoon is a presentation by the Regional District of Nanaimo. Larry Gardner, please present your update regarding mandatory waste source separation.
Thank you so much. I'm hoping this isn't the first time people on council are hearing about these two bylaws we're working on. We figure we've had about 400 points of contact where people had an opportunity to find out about these. And we've actually had direct dialogue with about 2,000 people. So I'm hoping this isn't the first time it's coming to you. And if I've got a short presentation that describes both of the bylaws. Amanda, if you could move to the next slide. This isn't a webinar, so you aren't at the wrong meeting. But I'm just going to go over the background quickly and then talk about each of the bylaws, who's affected, what the requirements are and what the purpose, and then a bit of our timeline for introducing those bylaws. If you go to the next slide as well, Amanda, thank you. So in 2020, the Regional District Solid Waste Management Plan was approved by the Ministry of Environment, and it covers all of solid waste services, everything from managing our facilities to managing illegal dumping to a bunch of waste diversion strategies. We are targeting a 90% diversion over the life of the plan, over the 10-year life of the plan. We're currently at about 67% diversion. We are leaders definitely in the province and actually in the world in terms of waste diversion, and we're planning to get that much further along. The two greatest diversion initiatives are a combination of these two bylaws, the mandatory source separation bylaw. And by the way, for us to introduce this, regional districts don't have the authority to do so. So it does require regulation from the province. We've been in the dialogue with the province for several years on this, so they're definitely well aware it's coming. And then the waste hauler licensing bylaw requires, there is authority to do it, but it requires approval of the Minister of Environment. And again, the ministry is well aware that we've been working on these for some time. Next slide, please. So mandatory source separation. It's fairly simple concept. For those that live in a single family residence, it has a 3-bin system, recyclables, garbage, and organics. It's essentially an expansion of that service to every other waste generator. The only difference is the regional district won't be providing that service. It will be provided by the private sector. So what does a bylaw require? It requires everybody, essentially everybody generating waste to have 3 bins, organics, garbage, and recycling. So that would be all business, multifamily dwellings, and institutions that generate waste. It doesn't include single family dwellings because currently every single family dwelling in our region already has that service through their either the regional district, or if they're in the city of Nanaimo, through the city of Nanaimo. So what are the requirements? For existing buildings, it will be the provision of 3 containers, garbage, recycling, and organics, or the option to contract for post-collection sorting. One of the things that we heard early on when putting together this bylaw is there were a lot of concern by people indicating they may not have space to put together 3 bins. So this would provide the opportunity, somebody could hire a company to actually do post-collection and sorting and pull the organics and the recyclables out of the material. But for new buildings, there would only be the allowance for the 3-bin system. Owners are also compelled to notify their occupants in writing of the provision of the containers. So if you're the landlord for multifamily residence, you'd have to advise your tenants, and the same with any commercial business that's renting space. They would have an obligation to advise their tenants of the provision of the bins. They'd have to maintain a record of proof of doing so for 12 months. And if there's a contravention, they're subject to ticketing, and the fines are proposed to be in the order of about a $500 ticket for failure to provide either the bins or notification of your residents. So what's the purpose of this? It really comes down to, it's an unrealistic expectation to have people participate in source separation of materials or diversion when there's no physical means to do so. This bylaw simply provides this physical means for people to participate. So similar to our residential curbside program, we don't actually compel people to use the 3 bins, but our level of participation is very, very high. And partly because people, if they have the service, they use the service. So part of it is to provide a service, so there's a physical means so people can participate in diversion. And then we're trying to target the highest valuable recyclable material because it makes it easier to market. So if we want industry to be successful in marketing recyclable materials, the better the quality material, the more successful they're going to be. And that's the purpose of this bylaw. Waste hauler licensing, and they fit really well together, and I'll touch on that at the end. But who's affected? Anybody hauling waste for profit in the RDN would require a license for the RDN, would require a license to carry out that activity. The licensing requirement would not apply to those that haul separated recyclables, haul illegally dumped material, so clean up from illegally dumped material, municipal waste hauled on behalf of local government, or waste generated outside the region that's hauled to facilities that we license. So the regional district for about 10 years now has been licensing private waste management facilities in the region. So any material flowing from outside of the region to those would not be captured by this bylaw. It's really only intended to capture waste that's destined for ultimate disposal. Next slide, please. So what are the requirements? So to obtain a license, it really requires submission of your application and submission of your annual license fee. It's not a discretionary decision. Think of it like your driver's license. If you meet the requirements, you get a license. It would require the remittance of a disposal levy. So that industry, any of the material, not recyclables, only waste that is sent for ultimate disposal would have to pay a disposal levy to the region. And we're looking at, every 2 months, a remittance of that disposal levy based on the amount of waste that's shipped for disposal. Also, with a license, the hauler would benefit by getting a reduced tipping fee at the landfill. And the concept is to have the combination of the reduced tipping fee and the disposal levy to be about $20 less than the regular tipping fee that everybody else pays. And the whole intention of this is to have the waste flow rather than directly to the landfill through the waste industry and then incent the industry to divert. So again, the disposal levy is a per ton charge payable to licensed haulers for the waste deposited at a landfill or refuse-derived fuel facility outside the region. It would not apply to recyclables. Next slide, please. So what's the purpose? The whole intent of this is to set up an economic model where it's more profitable to divert waste than it is to landfill. It's also intended to shift the flow of waste to the industry. About a third of the waste we get at the regional district facilities comes directly from self-haul, so that's either individuals or small businesses. We actually are trying to encourage the flow of that material to the waste industry because honestly, they're more effective at diversion than what we are as government. It's easier for them to advance innovation. They're more flexible in how they can make changes as markets change. So the synergies between the two bylaws is mandatory source separation makes it easier for haulers to get high quality source separated material. So it makes it easier for them to market it. The waste hauler licensing provides a lower tipping fee for waste that does not include divertible material. So the idea is we give the waste industry a lower rate for just garbage, but if it has recyclable material in it, they'll pay a higher rate. The result is we get more material recycled, we get a more profitable waste industry, which means a growing industry, which means more jobs, better local economy, and better convenience for better services and better convenience for residents of the regional district. So what does it cost us for the program? The mandatory source separation, there's really very, very minor costs associated with that. We're really, we see there's enough positive influence for people to participate without really, minimal kind of enforcement effort. What does cost is the waste hauler licensing, and that's primarily through lost tipping fee revenue because we're actually reducing industry's costs. So we're really transferring money that would be received by the regional district to industry. And it's about $800,000 to $1 million. But if we consider how just the landfill implications alone, let alone the other economic benefits that I touched on with a growing industry. So just landfill implications, we expect these two bylaws to result in about a 10% diversion of waste. So each year the landfill remains active, we know it saves our residents about $3.4 million a year. And that's just doing a comparative cost with exporting waste because it's more expensive to export waste for disposal. So just in landfill savings alone, a 10% reduction in waste results in an annual savings of about $900,000 a year, just in benefit by extending the life of the landfill. In other words, they're really expected to be cost neutral. So although we're transferring what would be revenue collected through tipping fees to the regional district, we're actually going to save, it's cost neutral in terms of just landfill increased landfill life, let alone we get the other benefits of more jobs, higher diversion, better economy, and more convenience to residents. Next slide, please. So what's our timeline? We've been carrying out consultation on these bylaws over the summer and the fall. We hope to take we are taking the mandatory source separation bylaw to the board this month for first and second reading. And then we will be sending that to the province and asking for cabinet to pass a regulation to allow us to actually introduce, I should correct, they will not be doing first and second reading. They will just be improving it to send it to the province to get permit, to ask the province to move forward with the regulation to allow us to introduce it. The waste hauler licensing, we expect that to move to first and second reading in January, and then to the Minister of Environment asking for approval. On minister approval of the waste hauler licensing, it would get introduced. On development of a regulation for the mandatory source separation, we would take the bylaw forward for second, third reading. Both of those we're targeting to have operational in the spring of next year, of 2022. We still have quite a bit to do to get there, so we might see a bit of a delay. So if we don't achieve the spring, I'm fairly confident we can have both operational by the fall of next year. And that's our timeline. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate your information that you've provided us. Are there any questions for the delegation? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Larry. Thanks for the presentation, and forgive me, due to the sound system in here, I was getting a lot of what you're saying, but not entirely, and maybe asking questions that you covered. My question is basically, how are you going to get buy-in from the community or from the buildings that would be using this service, Larry? Is it going to be just mandatory? Is it just going to be the fact that you're using a private waste hauler now? Effective such and such a date, you're going to switch over to the bins then for sorting. Is that going to be a slower process, or how does that process work to get maximum buy-in from the participants?
It's a fabulous question. So I think there's a number of drivers that move this ahead fairly well. So in terms of businesses or multifamily, their service provider, that doesn't need to change at all. They can continue on just as they have been. The difference is they'll have to have 3 containers in one. Now, we do have a number of businesses, multifamily within our region, that already have voluntarily have put those services in place. We regularly get called from residents of multifamily units asking for that service, but as it stands right now, it's entirely voluntary. If an owner or a strata chooses, or a business chooses to provide those services. And then from the industry side, we've actually, there's more reservation with the waste hauler licensing, because in general, the industry would prefer not to have more regulation. But overall, they are supportive of the 3-bin system. They do see it provides them an opportunity to make it easier to get, quality materials that they can divert. We have been encouraging the industry to go out and sell this service in advance of the bylaw coming in place. We see garbage collection is a little bit like internet services. Once you signed on, you tend to be reluctant to change. So we've been encouraging industry to do that as well. Through our solid waste management plan and through our consultation on these bylaws, we continue to hear a lot of support for higher levels of diversion and better services. But there is always always will be that element that will be slower to adopt a new system than others. But I would say we've had significant support across the board from owners, residents, and the industry in getting to this stage. So like I say, I think there are going to be that element that is reluctant to, or slow to participate, but overall, I think we'll see a lot of support.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. So along the same lines in the industry and the 3-bin system, obviously industry has more waste. Will the RDN be supplying the bins for the industry or business?
No, it will be entirely provided by the service provider. So, or the owner, right? So the owner can either acquire or the service provider provide those bins. Now we have done relevant to, the last couple of questions, we have done some forecasts for what this is going to cost. And we believe on the multifamily side of things, it will be a nominal increase or none at all. And the reasons for that, right now, there's very few multifamily businesses that get a 3-bin system. So invariably, when that material gets picked up, it gets picked up with the recyclables, with all of the commercial recyclables. And those the company has to market on their own because they're not eligible through the Recycle BC stewardship program. We're fairly confident when this goes in, much more of the material from the multifamily, the recyclables will get marketed through Recycle BC, and those costs are actually covered by Recycle BC because us as consumers have actually, paid those costs when we purchase the items. And then tipping fees right now for organics are cheaper than garbage. So when people start to separate it, actually those costs should actually be reflected in lower cost. And then thirdly, through the waste hauler licensing, the industry will be receiving a lower tipping fee at the landfill, like a lower overall cost. So a combination of those, we actually don't believe there's going to be any impact to the multifamily, and there will be some impact to the business sector. And we believe to go from a single bin system. So for those that currently have a 3-bin system, their costs will fall, they will drop. For those that currently have a single bin system now, cost we suspect might be as much as double current costs.
Follow up, Your Worship?
Yes, please.
Thank
I was
you.
figuring you had one.
So my concern is, I guess with the industry standard and having a 3-bin system, it's no longer, residential is picked up by the RDN. That's what it is. Industrial is not. They usually contract their own waste hauler and that away. And from my previous experience with waste hauling, they have 2 different methods. They have the garbage removal and basically a cardboard removal. So they would be forced to change their facilities or their trucks to accommodate this new method. Would that be a safe assumption?
They will, for certain, they will change how they currently do their business. Will they actually change your trucks? I think in some cases they will. They'll definitely modify how they do their collection. So, they can use the same truck and then they use, they just, they collect one material one day, one material the next day. Similar with residential curbside, we use a split packer truck that takes 2 material commodities. One week that we're collecting garbage, and then the next week we're collecting recyclables in that same piece of equipment. So will we see a change to start to look at like split packer trucks? I suspect we will. Will we look at the industry collecting recyclables and garbage from businesses in the larger, like 4-yard containers or larger containers that they're currently using? And will they do a separate run for the small amount of organics that you might get from something like an accountant's office? So undoubtedly, there will be changes in how the industry provides service to the residents. What's really changes with this is under the current voluntary system, where most people choose the lowest cost option, which is put everything in one bin. It's really hard for a business to build an economy of scale around that level of service. When you change it, when everybody is on a 3-bin system, it allows the industry to build an economy of service. And that's why we believe the cost won't be significant to make this change, because once everybody's on it, and then a combination of lower tipping fees for organics, reduced tipping fees for industry, right? That we don't expect that there's going to be a significant cost increase, but there will be. And to kind of back up to our solid waste management plan, our community demonstrate a very strong desire for us to push far higher levels of diversion. Diversion costs money. If you want low cost, that's landfilling. So if we're going to increase diversion, it is going to come at a cost, and our solid waste management plan is based on a user pay service. So those that generate waste will pay, a higher, will pay their share of those costs. Hopefully that gives a little bit of context of, some of the other thinking behind getting to these bylaws.
Thank you. I have one further question through
Please.
you, Your Worship, to our CAO, because this requires a bigger space allowable for business for waste, which will, in my mind, affect new building construction and space and allowable movement for the trucks and everything. Because in an industrial or a multifamily, you're looking at like the 2 kind of bin aspects, but now you're going to look at 3 bins. So space, a larger space may be required is my thought process and on that. And again, allow for the movement of those 2 bin trucks and everything to get through an area per se. So will that basically affect the whole system of construction, I suppose you'd say? Thank you.
For me, Your Worship, thank you. Through you to Councillor Patterson, we had our Director of Engineering and Director of Planning meet with the RDN staff. So I'm not sure if either of them are on the meeting today, but they were reviewing some of the implications for the city. I believe we will have a bylaw presented to us at a later date for consideration of readings, but I'm just wondering if I may, through the chair, see if either of our planning or engineering directors want to weigh in at this point.
Are the directors of planning and engineering online? I suggest not. Are they? They're just choosing not to answer me? They're choosing not to answer. What they've done is they've gone online and then went and done something else and ignored the. No, that's true. I'm joking about it, but.
I know, and if I may, Your Worship,
It will. Listen, I've been in this business a long time. And a couple things. First off, I don't care what the comment is that it's a nominal increase. To business, it's going to be a significant increase. First off, to go to a 3rd bin and have a 3rd bin collected is going to increase. Waste management companies have never seen a nominal increase that they can't expand to something much larger. So that bothers me significantly because of the healthcare. It bothers me, the healthcare costs that small businesses have just gone through, minimum wage increases, the fact that they've just fought 2.5 years of COVID, and that now they're coming back and we want to add on to this. And yes, it's going to not only cost 30% more for the garbage construction structure to be built, but it's also going to result in 2 losses in parking spaces on every lot because of the space required. So there's a significant amount of damage. And before I say I'm in favor of this or jump up and down on the table agreeing with it, I certainly want to see what effect it's going to have, both from our construction or our engineering and planning groups, and also from some of the businesses that are around town. I only know about the restaurant industry, and I'm telling you that it will cause significant increase for the restaurant industry, but there's other businesses too. Some it may not be significant at all, especially if you don't have a lot of organics. But to companies in the restaurant business, for example, organics becomes a significant number. So before I jump up and down, I'd certainly like to see more information on this. So we'll go. Pardon me?
Sorry, if I may, Your Worship, I believe that some of the staff are currently available, but I think perhaps the best chance for a broader discussion would be for staff to provide a bit of a memo to council when the actual bylaw comes forward. This has actually been very helpful. Why we asked the RDN staff to come was so that we could find out what council would like in terms of support. But Blaine is available.
Thank you, Larry. We appreciate your input and the information that you've provided us. Thank you very much for that. And now I need somebody to move to receive the information. Councillor Chandler, second by Councillor O'Brien. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
We have 2 items of correspondence on the agenda today. One's the Regional District of Nanaimo Regional Parks and Trails Service Area Amendment Bylaw, where they want to change how they do some of their calculations. I need somebody to move and second the recommendations. Moved by Councillor Chandler, second by Councillor O'Brien. Discussion. Any conversation? Well, we know that, go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, I'd probably like to hear from you and Councillor Fraz in regards to some of the discussion around the RDN board table on this. Thank you.
I was just going to do that. So would you like to speak? Fair enough. First off, the regional district knows that I'm not excited about the fact that we even pay parks and services costs, since we don't have one single park or one trail in the city of Parksville. So for us to be paying the $20 a year per residence, or $130,000 a year in total for the acquisition and development tax, and then over and above that, I think it's $139,000 in operational expenses, again, for something that we're not getting any benefit for. I have a problem with this. Having said that, because it's the regional government, we have really no choice but to participate in this. The reality is that this proposal is actually $11,000 or so cheaper than what was previously on the books for. So we're saving 11 grand. There's an assumption there over a period of time that our population doesn't grow at a faster rate than what Nanaimo's or anybody else's does, because that would change the economics of it a slight amount. But right now it's a little bit better deal for the city of Parksville is what I'm saying. I hope I answered what you were looking for. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to say, I guess I echo a lot of your comments in regards to the parks and everything in Parksville and the costs that go towards the RDN. So I am not so happy, but ongoing.
Councillor Fraz is going to speak, but just to carry on for just a touch on, there isn't an opportunity that I don't take to bring up our dissatisfaction with paying towards this cost. So Councillor Fraz.
Just to add in there a little bit, she asked about some of the conversation that goes around at the board table there. There's quite a number of directors that have asked for this parcel tax to be as high as $50. And so it's been a fight to keep it at a reasonable amount. So I think you'd see the payoff of it going to population-based increase, the higher that they start pushing up the parks tax up. So at $20 a tax for parcel tax rate, if it's $11,000, you can see that benefit double if they double that cost, which is what they definitely are asking for.
Yeah. Councillor O'Brien, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I think I understand what you were saying anyways about the difference for the city of Parksville, how it affects us. And that would be the change in allocation from last year to this was actually negative $11,405. And so also city of Nanaimo also benefited from whatever the change in the formula was. So was it a population-based formula? Is that what it is per unit? Or is it assessed value, or was it just basically strictly population?
I'm not sure how the previous one was done, to be honest with you, Councillor O'Brien. Go ahead, the CAO.
Yeah, thank you.
I believe, if I may, through your worship, I believe the previous one was just a flat parcel tax rate.
Okay.
So every legal parcel in the city was charged a flat rate. And
Yes.
this is an adjustment now to reflect not just the number of individual parcels, but also a population combination,
50%.
like a 50-50 sharing of those.
50% in between parcel tax and population.
I believe so.
Okay, and that makes sense because I noted that area B, not really sure what that is in
Area B, that's.
Gabriola, yeah, they saved 21,000 with this formula, so it's definitely a benefit for them to change it. So it's just basically the cost sharing. That answers the question, 50-50 parcel tax and population. Thank you.
Just as a side note, the parcel tax last year was $12 per parcel, and now it's $20, so they've increased it.
So just to correct that too, the switch to the 50-50 is assessment and population. So it'll be converted assessment. So you'll see areas that with higher assessment values start paying a higher rate, like News, for example, higher value homes, higher population, it might see an increase versus Bowser that might see reduction.
The region, just to follow up one more time, the region on that have been trying to go to that split with the assessment and population, 50% of the cost allocated from assessment, 50% from populations. Okay, so just to try to even that out a bit. So anyways, I'm going to call for the vote on this for 1, 2, and 3 altogether. All those in favor? Reluctantly opposed. Thank you. Regional District of Nanaimo Northern Community Sewer Local Service Amendment Bylaw number 889.77. They're just asking to adjoin one piece of property on down by, yeah, thank you. And there's, I think, 4 or 5 pieces of property that are already hooked into our sewer system or into the sewer system. It's not ours, the sewer system already. And they're just asking the people in the Northern Community Sewer Service to approve adding one more. So I'll take a mover and a seconder for recommendations 1, 2, and 3. Councillor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Patterson. All those in favor? Should have asked for discussion. I'm sorry, that was my fault. If there's any discussion, I'll take it on a later basis. But yeah, please go ahead. That was my fault. I apologize.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I was just going to comment on this is actually a good thing anyways for as far as the environmental wise, because the thing is that the properties on Bay Drive are right adjacent to Craig Bay, the ocean. So the thing is that it's a good move. And so that's why I think it's a great thing, but I appreciate that they ask for our input as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's carried. Purpose of this is to rise and report in an open meeting, the report from November the 1st closed council meeting. And I need a mover and a seconder for this motion. Moved by Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Fraz. Discussion. I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Please note that Councillor O'Brien is in opposition. Pardon me? Did I? Did you say something? Yes.
If I may, Your Worship, this is just rising and reporting on what was received in camera.
That's right.
So it's just a motion to receive.
Yes. Yes. Change it to, okay, fair enough. So it's unanimous. Thank you. Bad choice of words. Thanks, Councillor Fraz. Councillor appointments from reports. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations 1 and 2. Councillor Chandler, seconded by Councillor Greer. Any comments? Now or forever hold your peace, at least until October. All right, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Reports. Mr. Moody, please present the information regarding the selection of vendor for a 5-year internet services contract. Here he is.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
If I may, Your Worship, I'll just do a quick summary of the report for council. Since 2016, the city has had an internet service agreement with Shaw Business. And as of December this year, that contract, being 5 years, will expire. A new 5-year internet service will see a speed increase, and that will accommodate for future growth of cloud-based services and also provide internet service redundancy across our newly implemented fiber optic service, which connects our PCTC facility here and the operations and Englishman River water system facilities. In essence, if our main internet connection at the PCTC facility fails for any reason, we would fail over to our secondary internet service at the operations facility. The financial impact is positive as the new internet services will be within our current budget. The current budget currently is $12,500. The new service will be approximately $9,400 yearly. Of that, PCTC will comprise about $6,780, while operations will be $2,100. The strategic implications are also positive as the new agreement allows for future growth of cloud-based services, and additionally, the increased speed will enhance our IT service delivery and improve the operational efficiency of the whole organization. The two vendor proposals received were independently evaluated by an evaluation committee using the criteria as noted in the analysis section of the report. Criteria scores. Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I thought there was a question, sorry.
Oh.
The two vendor proposals received were independently evaluated by an evaluation committee using the criteria as noted in the analysis section of the report. The criteria scores were combined and averaged to get final proposal scores. The best proposal was from Shaw Business. Staff are asking for council's approval to enter into an internet services agreement with Shaw Business for the provision of internet services for a term of 5 years. If there are any questions regarding the report, I'll be happy to answer them for you now. Thank you.
All right, I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Patterson, second by Councillor Greer. Discussion. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to our CEO. Can you give me the logistics on why this had to come before council?
If I may, Your Worship, thank you very much for the question. I was actually just debating whether I should bring that up. So if I may, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Patterson, this is below the signing authority that I could sign But when I discussed this with both our manager of IT and director of engineering and IT, I thought it was important for council to be aware of the work that we do behind the scenes sometimes. And especially in IT, since Mike has joined us, a lot of things that were not really proactively done in IT have now been proactively done in IT through Mike and his team. And so things like the fiber optic cable, which again was under my spending authority usually, which is $100,000. It provides a lot of business continuity and connectivity for the city and also efficiency. So when we have quicker service and less downtime in our IT, it helps us do more with the same amount of staff. And so even though I could have signed this off, I thought it was important for council to know that we're always looking for improvements, ways to save money in the services that we provide, and also just allowing council to understand a little bit about the operational business and why we have an IT department. So thank you very much for that question.
Any other questions? All right, I will call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Russell. He's right here.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. For council consideration this afternoon is a development permit at 116 Herring Gull Way. This is a property jointly owned by the city of Parksville and the regional district of Nanaimo. The application is to facilitate the installation of a dewatering system that will manage waste flow from the existing drinking water treatment plant. It's part of the regular routine maintenance of the plant that every once in a while you have to sort of scour inside and dewater the plant. This approval is related to the fact that it's located within a number of development permit areas. The recommendations are per the agenda.
I need a mover and a seconder for the Councillor O'Brien, second by Councillor Fraz. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Mr. Russell, keep going. It's yours.
Certainly. The city has received a development permit application at learning how to read here, at 331 and 343 Moliette Street South. This is a follow-up to a rezoning that happened a couple of years ago. This is now the development permit to deal with the form and character and some sustainability principles. If approved, it will facilitate the subdivision. As part of this, there's also a variance to allow for basically a fence, a 2-meter high fence on top of a 1-meter high retaining wall. At this time, we're looking for council permission to proceed with the notice for the fence and retaining wall. This is as a result of required grading on the property in order to facilitate drainage as part of the associated subdivision. Related to this, are there some variances that are to be considered through the development permit process that are related to buildings in the middle of the property that eventually will disappear as it develops. So basically tonight or this afternoon, what we're seeking is permission to proceed with notice. We will then do public notice with respect to the retaining wall and fence, and we'll then bring a follow-up report back where the development variance permit and development permit are for council consideration. The recommendations are per the agenda.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder for recommendations 1, 2, and 3. Councillor Chandler, second by Councillor Greer. Any discussion? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to our Director of Planning. I just wonder if you could clarify for us, Mr. Russell, on what the use is going to be. On page 91 of our agenda, it may be a mistake, but it just says the variances will permit the proposed 4-story mixed commercial multifamily residential building. And I believe this is supposed to be single family, so I'm a little bit confused and thought I might get clarification. Thank you.
If I may, worship through to Councillor Wilson, it appears that there's an editing error that is that you've discovered in the staff report. So this is strictly for a small lot residential subdivision.
That's what I thought. So just thought I'd bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out, Councillor Wilson. Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
If I may, Your Worship, the
Keep
next
going.
application is for a development permit and development variance permit at 113 Hearst Avenue East. The proposal will facilitate a 3-story mixed-use building. This may be where it was from. The subject property is within the downtown development permit area number 1. The building includes commercial space on the ground floor with 8 residential units above. There's a mix of unit types consisting of 2 1-bedroom units, 2 1-bedroom plus den, and 4 units with 2 bedrooms. In order to facilitate the design of the building, there's a proposed height variance to increase the height from the standard 11 meters to 12.8 meters. In order to accommodate the on-street parking, there's some relaxations being requested to the property boundaries. This is quite common in the downtown core. At this point in time, we're looking for council authorization to proceed with notice for the development variance permit. The report will then come back, a follow-up report will come back to council for future consideration. I do want to apologize to council that 2 of the attachments inadvertently weren't attached. The sustainability community checklist and accessory checklist did not end up on the agenda. They will be attached to the follow-up report. So my apologies to council for that omission. At this time, we would ask that council consider the recommendation to proceed with the required notice for the development variance permit.
I need a mover and a seconder for recommendations 1, 2, and 3. Councillor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Fraz. All right, discussion. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Mr. Russell. So I certainly applaud the application here for the fact that it's allowing for multiple bedroom units. Anyways, in the downtown core, it's going to increase the densification of the downtown core, basically bringing people back downtown, which I think is very essential and critical at this stage of Parksville's development. So I'm appreciative for this application and also willing to accept the variance as proposed. I think it's definitely worth it to get that increased housing in the downtown. So thank you.
Councillor Fraz.
Just want to make a comment just regarding parking spaces there and recognizing that when we have variances requesting reduction of parking spaces, we take on that responsibility then of the parking in the downtown, because what I hear from businesses downtown is their employees don't have places to park, recognizing there's going to be commercial spacing here. If we're not expecting parking spaces up front that businesses are going to have for their employers, then I think we do shoulder that burden of, having to take on what are we going to do with the parking as it comes up. So I just want to make that comment because it becomes a downstream consequence later on for us to look at.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor of it? Unanimous. Thank you. Mr. Russell, please.
If I may, Your Worship, for council consideration is the adoption of a resolution related to liquor and cannabis regulation branch resolution. The application is intended to facilitate the relocation of an existing cannabis retail store from one unit to another unit on the same legal property. So the applicant is proposing to move from unit 102 to unit, from unit 102 to unit 101 on the subject property at 124 Craig Street. The recommendation is per the agenda. If there's any questions, I'll happy to answer them.
Need a mover and a seconder for the 2 recommendations. Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Chandler. Discussion. Call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Pardon me? You did not vote in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand go up. Oh, there you go. Councillor Fraz is in opposition. You're right, I didn't. Councillor Greer, you've provided a notice of motion on our last meeting regarding an amendment to the council procedure.
Thank you, Your Worship. The motion is that in order to expedite the business of council in an efficient manner, council directs staff to amend the procedure bylaw to add a requirement that council members only be permitted to speak a maximum of 2 times on a particular subject, unless the member is raising new information that is not already being considered by the council.
I need a seconder for that motion. Who's going to second it? Councillor Fraz is seconding. Discussion. Councillor Greer, you're first.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think the motion is self-explanatory. The reason I bring this forward is pretty obvious. Some of our meetings are just too long. They run 4 hours. Although councilors might have time to spare, we must think of staff. We're also holding up staff as well when we have such long council meetings, but it's pretty obvious that 4-hour meetings is too long. Thanks.
Thank you. And Councillor O'Brien, then Councillor Fraz.
Thank you. Appreciate Councillor Greer bringing up this kind of motion. I do think there is value in it, and it's something like at the regional district in Nanaimo, it's something that we have in our procedure too, where we don't speak on more than once unless it's new information. In considering this, though, appreciating that you have the notice of motion for this, I think I would like to offer it as an amendment where we would take this recommendation and forward it to the next term of council. And the reason being is that I know when a new council forms, they often want to look at the procedure bylaw. And I think if we were to give them kind of recommendations of things that we've seen through our term, there's other items in there that I think would be a benefit, like the motion to reconsider. In my opinion, it can use more of a weighted vote of a 2/3 rather than just the standard 50-50. Things like that. And rather than cracking open the procedure bylaw every time to do a one-off type thing, if we give them some of our thoughts, then they can look at it. Otherwise, we're asking staff to do this in the last year of our term, and then they're most likely in 11, 12 months, they're going to have to be going and doing it again. So I guess I'd put it as an amendment that we take this recommendation and forward it to the next term.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson, you had your hand up.
Well, that was amendment. So if it's going to be seconded, then we can.
Are you doing the amendment now?
Yes.
Oh, all right. Can we do that? You're deferring it. You're not amending.
No, I'm making an amendment to the motion that rather than, the amendment would be that rather than address, like open up our bylaw to amend it now, that we take this recommendation of not speaking more than twice and we forward it to the next term of council.
That's a deferral.
Oh, then we're deferring it to the next term of council.
Okay. We can just, if you're making the motion to defer the whole thing to the next council, then that's fine.
Except deferral doesn't get the same discussion.
Sorry, if I may,
No,
Your
it
Worship,
doesn't.
just offer maybe or ask a clarification question. I'm kind of thinking that Councillor Fraz is not intending to defer the decision on that motion, but instead kind of change the approach to not necessarily debate this motion right now, but just make recommendations to a future council on items that this council thinks should be considered. So staff would not take, I think if it was deferred, we would then take the action in the next, like once a new council is there. Whereas I think what I'm hearing is that Councillor Fraz is suggesting it be presented as a recommendation or a list of recommendations perhaps over the next few months to the new council for further direction. So we may or may not get direction from that council to make the change. Is
Yes.
that kind of what I'm?
Yeah, I think you understand it correctly. And it's to save the staff from the time now.
Whereas if we defer it, then we're actually being told to do the action, but just at a later time.
No, if you're deferring the vote on.
Or deferring
We wouldn't
consideration.
even be debating
Deferring the
it.
decision is what we're deferring. You don't defer the motion, you're deferring the decision. Based on what Councillor Fraz is saying, we're taking that whole decision and we're moving it to the next council and let them decide. That's basically what he's saying with a deferral.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, that's the way I read it. Councillor O'Brien, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Would it not be best just to actually make a decision on Councillor Greer's motion as it stands right now? Have debate and then vote, and then allow Councillor Fraz to present another version of that same motion afterwards? or
You're saying defeat the motion.
I'm saying defeat
You're
the
making
motion.
an assumption.
Well, I'm just saying defeat the motion type of thing, and then you can propose what you're suggesting either now with a unanimous consent of council.
Councillor Greer, it's an interesting conversation.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, I don't see the point in leaving it for another entire year. I think this should have happened probably several years ago, because I've spent a lot of time here and a lot of wasted time in some council meetings because we just simply talk over and over and over again, and the results are exactly the same. So I don't see the point in moving it on to another council. I'm sure the other council will appreciate the fact that they as well only have twice to get up. I mean, it amounts to 15 minutes for someone to say something. That's a lot of time. So I don't see the point in referring it. Anyways, thanks.
Okay. Pardon me? Hold on for a second. We're just going to get this straight. You've made a deferral. Do you want to keep it as a deferral? Because that's the deferral is we're taking the whole damn thing and we're moving it to next October or November, whenever they say. That's when the vote would be taken on it, not by us. We can't do both.
I think then yes, then my intention would be as a deferral and
Okay.
just as a reason of that. You already spoke twice, by the way. The reason for that isn't so much that I don't think it's a good motion. I think it is, but we've already mentioned about how much projects we have on staff's agenda, and every time they crack open a bylaw, how much time that takes. And that's where I just don't think that in this last year is the time to be tasking staff with opening up this bylaw. I think there's more than just this one singular thing that could be addressed in that bylaw, which is why I think we could pass it off as a recommendation to them or defer it to then. Like I mentioned, there's other parts I think we could defer to it as well.
Hold on for a second. We have a deferral on the floor. I need a seconder for the deferral. Second by Councillor Patterson. Okay, now we can talk about the deferral because it is debatable. The postponement is debatable. Who's next? Councillor? No, his whole thing has been pushed off to one side now. And we're deferring.
Point of order, Your Worship. I think the CEO will instruct on, we don't go any further.
Yeah, there's no debate on deferral.
It's called postponement. It says debate.
In our procedure bylaw?
Yep.
Give
The
us one
points that
second
you
to
gave
double check.
me, by the way.
That Amanda gave us?
Yep.
So motion to defer. But is that not debate? I thought that's not debatable. It's not debatable.
Well, I've got it here that it is debatable. Pardon me? It has the motions, the different motions, and it says it's debatable.
If I may, Your Worship, our procedure bylaw, section 6
Okay.
of motions, 20.6, says that that is not amendable or debatable. However, I mean, we can defer to council.
No, if it's not debatable, that's fine. I'm okay with that, but somebody needs to go through my book and change the front page so it's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it says definitely that it's.
Yeah, I have the
Debatable.
procedure bylaw here. If count,
All right. Fair
items
enough.
2 to
You can't
7 are
speak
not
to it
debatable.
then, Councillor. No, we are handling your motion by deferring it. That's what the discussion is. You're deferring your motion, not to handle it directly. So we have a firster and a seconder. A firster and a seconder on this. I'm going to call the question then because it says I can't talk about it and we'll pass it on. All those in favor of deferring until October, till the next council? Three. I'm sorry, Councillor Wilson, I didn't see your, is your hand up? Are you in favor?
Well, actually, I did put my hand up because I didn't figure we really had much choice, but I'd like to talk about it. But anyway,
You can't.
you know. Okay, so then I'll defer.
All right, that's 3. Pardon me? No, it's not. Pardon me? I'm going to right now. Opposed? Okay, so the deferral is defeated. We're back to the original motion. All right, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you.
It was a good thought.
And so there's a very good reason why open debate is important at the table, and sometimes it might take a couple more tries at it. So I disagree with your notice of motion, Councillor Greer, but I'm going to quote Barack Obama in a recent speech. He said, laudable efforts to restrict speech can become a tool to silence critics or oppress minorities. That's Barack. So the thing is that this, to restrict a person at the table from speaking more than once or twice or whatever, is to limit the debate. And that's what we're here for. And it's sad that you feel that we have to get through our meetings quickly, and that would be more expedient in some way. But the thing is that the actual rules of democracy is that every member get to speak to it. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't appreciate any restriction to that freedom.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I absolutely am against this motion. I don't think it's necessary. And I also feel that the chair can control the discussion if need be. And there are so many occasions where we have all gone over the limit of that. Even today with the Boys and Girls Club, the RDN questions, some councillors asked several more than 2 questions. And I just think it's a really important issue to discuss. We have not had, I can't even count many 4-hour meetings. That might be only when we've had closed meetings after. So I agree, and Councillor O'Brien is just said as well that it's just not a good idea to limit conversations. We usually do get a good outcome, and we have solved a few problems, like with NAH. We managed to get family units, and that was a very long discussion. And with Bruce McCly on McCarter, we also got 2-bedroom units. So there are lots of good things that have come out of our discussion, and maybe it's inconvenient for some, but I think generally speaking, we have had success with our meetings. So that's my point. I would vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, through your worship. I voted against the deferral just so that we could bring up this new situation, because I will vote against the motion as well of Councillor Greer's. I'm not against the motion. I understand the idea of it, but I also think that there's far too much regulation, far too many things going on in our lives right now to to worry about another 5-minute conversation that's going to affect our lives. So I totally appreciate where you're coming from, Councillor Greer, but at the same token, just don't want to not be able to say something when it comes to mind. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple of points I'll make. First off, Councillor Wilson, the questions asked today were to delegations. You can ask as many questions as you wish to delegations. It's only to motions is what Councillor Greer's motion is about. Okay, and that's there is definitely a difference. Secondly, I think that we're not limiting speech. I don't have anything quite as gracious as Barack Obama listed down here, but we're not limiting discussion. What we're limiting is going around and saying the same thing over and over again. And that to me is where we start to drag our feet. If it says very clearly, if you have some new information, then you can speak the 3rd time, but we'll just be more careful when it comes up for that it is new information and not a rehashing of something that you've already said. So based on that information, I'm going to vote in favor of this. I agree. We don't want to be limiting what people have to say if it's new information. If it's just the same stuff over and over again, then I think it makes sense to have it in the procedures rules. And I'll give Councillor Greer the final say, and then we'll call the vote.
Thank you, Worship. I couldn't agree more. And I was going to say something about Obama, but I won't mention it. But in my motion, it does say that you can speak on something in a new information that comes on. I think the problem is, or maybe it's not a problem, but I think if you study your agenda well enough and have your information in place, I don't think it should take any more than twice to stand up. You've got 15 minutes. That's a long time. I mean, we spent a lot of time tonight, for instance, although it's an open discussion, but we spent almost an hour and 20 minutes on the two people that give a presentation. So that drags out the meeting. And then if we drag it out further, as I say, we have staff members that we're holding up. I know one of the council meetings, one of the staff had a presentation to make and waited 4 hours, and then we ended up having to adjourn the meeting and have it the next day. So I think, and that was all due to a lot of people talking about going over and over the same thing. So I think we have to keep staff in mind when we decide on these things, and we should come well prepared so that we don't have to speak forever on one subject. Thanks.
All right. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Please note, Councillor Chandler, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Fraz, Councillor O'Brien, and Councillor Wilson are opposed. It's defeated. Thank you. If I can get the last page open. Are there any notices of motion? Any new business? Somebody stuck these pages together on purpose with glue. Okay, just a reminder that we have a special council meeting regarding the 2021 amended budget on Monday, the 29th at 1 p.m. Our next regular council meeting will be December the 6th, 2021 at 1 p.m. I need a motion to adjourn. Councillor O'Brien, second by Councillor Greer. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Relatively painless.